Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob and Robbie here. Robbie has just, in the last 10 minutes or something, last minute, has got into his house from Lucas Oil Field. He has been at the stadium today to watch the combine workouts. There's so much we need to talk about, Robbie. And I think we should just talk about this first because there's a lot of interesting stuff to discuss about Michael Penix and Spencer Rattler and JJ McCarthy and stuff like that. But Xavier Worthy broke the John Ross's record for the fastest 40-yard dash. It was certainly electrifying to watch, sat at home, thousands of miles away in the UK. So just give us a flavor of what it was like being in the stadium to see the fastest ever 40-yard dash.
Well, I'm gonna vent for a second because on Thursday I was like, "Oh, such a great experience." This today was a very different experience, and I don't know why they closed down like all the parking, so like you had to park super far away. It was really, really, really frustrating. And then getting into the stadium, everything was so packed, and like they huddle you into these like little sections, and then if it you can't get in that section. Like, well, you got to go upstairs then. And then they have one escalator that goes up the stairs and they're shuffling, a bunch of people to it. It was pretty chaotic. I got pretty frustrated there for a while. But once we finally found our seats, it was fine. But man, that moment when Worthy just took off, I literally, we all stood up when he was going to run the second time and we knew it was something was coming. And they have all these people that are like, anytime someone runs a 40, you're not allowed to clap. I mean, they tell you like no clapping, no getting excited. It's so dumb. It's like a completely different experience. But this time, like everyone just went nuts. No one cared. It was like, as the day went on, the more and more people were cheering and getting louder, and it felt more vibrant and fun. Man, that was a super cool experience to see. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into the rest, but yeah, that's my.
Well, I mean, first of all, what's the point of having fans there if you want them to sit and not say anything and not cheer?
Yeah,
I mean, that is a historic moment and made all the better because when Chris Johnson ran his record-breaking 40, he just ran a 40 and then, like half an hour later, they said he broke the record. And same with John Ross, he ran a great 40. They talked about it on air. And then eventually it was confirmed that he'd broken the record and everyone kind of just got on with their business. Xavier Worthy went on a lap of honor. I mean, like he set off. It was just great. All the other players suddenly started sprinting over to go and greet him. JJ McCarthy, who wasn't even part of that group, suddenly appeared from nowhere and jumped on him. And the crowd's going crazy, and you could just hear it, Robbie. It was they kept showing they showed the coach, Antonio Pierce, is it? The Raiders coach, and he's celebrating. Yeah. They showed
him on the big screen too.
Eric DeCosta's in there, and he's like, his facial expression was hilarious. So if you're going to have fans and you're going to make it that kind of prime time event, why the hell would you not have let people cheer?
Yeah, it's weird, but like I said, as time went on, they couldn't hold us back, and that was just a moment everyone was going nuts, and yeah, it was great. It was a fun experience today for sure. I mean, that made it all worth it, and then just seeing everyone just kind of freak out and huddle around him, and yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, an electrifying moment, and it was a good receiving session. I thought, there was a lot of guys that looked really smooth. They were catching the ball well, the hand technique. You were catching it away from the body, cupping the hands. There was a number of players who ran extremely fast. I was kind of like writing the names down, Robbie, and I'm thinking the horizontal board's going to look really stupid next time because there's just going to be like a whole stack of receivers in round two, and like possibly like 20 of them. And it's going to look ridiculous. The whole structure of the board's just going to look silly because there's like one position where it's loaded and there's everybody else. So it's a great receiver. I mean, if I was Mike Evans, for example, right now, I'd probably be thinking, I'm going to get paid less than I was perhaps 2 days ago because of all these guys who are running. And actually, this draft class could reset the market at receiver, Robbie, because there's a whole bunch of teams that for years now, the receiver money's going up, up, up. It's ridiculous amounts. Justin Jefferson's like this talk he might get like $35 million or something like that. And all of these teams are now going to go, well, hang on a minute, we could just draft him and not Xavier Worthy. I mean, just like we'll draft him, like that receiver there, get 4 or 5 years of great production out of them and an absolute fraction of the cost of somebody like that. They may not be the best receiver in the NFL, but they will do a job for us. And I just think it might reset this draft class might reset the receiver market. We will see. We will see. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's an extreme case, but when you had guys like Christian Kirk resetting the market, I don't suspect that's going to happen this year, like anything like that with this receiver class. Okay, we will talk a bit more about the receivers and who stood out, Robbie, but I want to get on to the quarterbacks because this is what we've been waiting for. And, since the Russell Wilson trade, it's been compulsive viewing, I think, if you're a Seahawks fan, to sit and watch the quarterback drills because eventually the Seahawks are going to have to draft a quarterback. That's just, it feels that that's going to be necessary. I'm going to start with the second group because I thought the first group, Robbie, was a little bit underwhelming.
They played it safe, it felt like.
Yeah.
They played it real safe. I felt like Nix, McCarthy, they were just like completing passes, but they weren't, you could tell they weren't like really, I don't know. There was something about it. They played it very safe.
We'll come back to them because you're absolutely right. That was the word that I just kept thinking, when's Bo Nix going to get going? Does he know this isn't the warm-up? Anyway, there was some things about, I've been on a bit of a journey with JJ McCarthy today, Robbie, and I'll tell you why afterwards. But Penix Jr., Spencer Rattler for me looked really good. In particular, Penix really shone. I also think, Robbie, there's this kind of that weird thing with Spencer Rattler. I think there's a lot of people out there who just assume mid-round pick and therefore don't really ever talk about him or take him seriously. And I kind of got that sense when the NFL Network spent more time praising Caden Slovis, who looked like, to be fair, looked like crap, than they did Spencer Rattler during that throw-in session. But I thought, and we can talk about Rattler in a second, but Penix Jr., I thought that was a fantastic performance, Robbie. Accurate, threw with anticipation, showed off the arm, deep balls. He just made it look so easy to get the ball downfield.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I don't think there's any way Penix is making it to 16. I don't. After today, I just got the feeling, even just like when he came out, people were real excited about seeing him throw. And, it's hard to, I am a Husky fan, so I try not to be too homerish on it, and I'm worried like, whatever it might be, but like other people there, wearing their Michigan jerseys or whatever they might be wearing. And we're still excited to see Penix throw. I just feel like he's got a buzz around him right now and he ain't making it to 16. There's just no way.
Well, I honestly don't know where he's going to go, Robbie. I think it's a complete mystery still. I think it's been a mystery for me since halfway through the college football season in 2023, because there are throws on. I've said this before, Robbie. This is nothing new. I've written about this. You could pull out 20 throws from last season alone and go, here's an argument to say that Michael Penix Jr. is on the level of all of the top exciting, big-armed passers who've come into the league and excelled over the last 7 or 8 years. Things he can do with his arm have to be seen to be believed. It's freakish. I don't think he gets enough credit, Robbie, for some of the throws that he makes, where he's kind of off balance and he's going to, like, there's the throw against Oregon is the one I keep coming back to, where he's kind of off balance. He's going to get hit. He just flicks it downfield. And you can't punt the ball downfield with that much velocity and precision, Robbie. It's just ridiculous the amount of torque he gets on his throws. But then there's that other side of it. Like, is he a scrambler? Can he escape pressure? Can he extend plays? How is he on the short intermediate? Can he do what Patrick Mahomes has just done in the Super Bowl and be methodical and patient and dissect a team when that is required and be patient? Or is he just a downfield thrower? Is he just somebody you have to let him have 15 shots a game and you've got to hope that maybe 5 of them turn into big point-scoring explosive plays? That's the concern for me, Robbie, is that the good is great. The other side of it just makes you think, I don't know how teams are going to view this. And I think some teams are just going to go, F it. Like, he's got this arm. We're going to give it a go. And that, to me, Robbie, is exactly what, and we can maybe talk about this. That's exactly what I think teams should be doing. I think you've got to take chances at quarterback. I think too many teams are scared. And I think as owners, you've got to empower your GMs and coaches and go, listen, if we have to go through 3 goes at this to find a franchise quarterback, you have our blessing. Because I think too often GMs and coaches are judged on one shot at quarterback. And unless you're really lucky, that one shot often doesn't work, Robbie.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things. One, how he measured today was huge. I think he's a lot more athletic than people were giving him credit for as well. He's got huge hands and he can zip the ball. I don't think there's any reason why he wouldn't be a top 15 pick at this point. I just can't see a reason why. I know the reasons what you're saying. I just, in my head, I just think there's going to be someone who's going to look at this guy and say, we're going to give this guy a chance. And I think, there's going to be a coach that believes that they could coach him to do all the things that he needs to do. I'm having a hard time seeing past that, I guess.
You could be absolutely right, Robbie. I think it's a very plausible argument, and I think you could be right that he doesn't make it to 16. I know Ian Rappaport's been talking about the medical checks are all clear. I mean, that to me, with the greatest respect, sounds a little bit like Penix Jr.'s agent is earning his money this week, and he's saying, "Hey, just get this out there that the medicals are all good," and that's not. Maybe they are. Like it's just I've got a little bit. I'm a little bit suspicious of that report, Robbie. And that will play a part, and teams will have their own thoughts on the medicals. There won't be, I suspect, a universal 32 teams all agree either way. Some will, some won't. Some might say we would draft him, but we're only willing to draft him here. And others might go, yes, we're prepared to draft him in the top 15. So I still think it could go either way. What I have to say, though, Robbie, is what I said before. I think you have to take chances as teams. When you do not have the guy, I think you have to keep looking for the guy. And that's part of the problem. We are going to go over the next 9 days. We are going to have a little dance, Robbie, called free agency, where a team is going to convince itself that the best thing they should do is pay probably $40 million a year for Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, who is about 37, will produce a baseline level of performance, Robbie. And for that $40 million, you are not going to have a cat in hell's chance of winning the Super Bowl. But you will have a baseline level of performance because Kirk Cousins is your quarterback. I would never do that as a GM. I'd say to an owner, give me a couple of shots at this to try and find somebody who can get us to the championship, who can win us a Super Bowl. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to use sense in deciding who we're going to take chances on. And Michael Penix should be the kind of person that you take a chance on because that arm is just fantastic. And he showed it off today. And the thought, Robbie, of him driving the ball downfield to DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba and, Tyler Lockett, if he's still here, and, and whoever else that you bring in. It's a very exciting thought, Robbie. And I would be ecstatic if they took that chance. Not because I necessarily think that he's worth, I don't think you have to put a firm number on it. I had him in round 2 on my horizontal board because we don't know about the medicals and we won't do it because of the concerns I've already raised. But I don't care. If John Schneider thinks this is the guy, Robbie, take a chance. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You have another go. But if that arm translates, and look how he carried Washington to the national championship, Robbie. And I'm not a Huskies fan, irrespective of the hat. But look what he did. Look what he did there. Look at that arm. Someone should take a chance on him early. And if it's Seattle, so be it, Robbie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Seattle's going to get a chance unless they trade up. I really believe it. I just think he did enough today. The way he measured, if the medical stuff is true, I don't see there's any reason why. I mean, you can go back and look at tape, and I know you can talk about middle of the season tape, but if you look at what he did against Texas, he's more athletic than people give him credit for. He has the ability to do things. I think they just, he could easily say, system or whatever, but I think he has the ability to be up there, and I think he's going to go well before we even have a chance to select him.
I think a lot of people, Robbie, are overcorrecting on that Michigan game because that's the last thought that you have. And I agree with the people. I think Hugh Millen's made this point that if the last game that Penix played for Washington was the Texas game, if they'd have actually lost, if they'd have, they nearly threw the game away at the end when Texas got an extra because of Dylan Johnson's injury, and Texas then marched down the field and had a chance to win it. If they'd have actually won the game, it probably would have done Penix Jr. stock the world of good, because he would have never had the Michigan game. That would have been the final thought, and he would not have been blamed for the way that Washington lost. The coaches and the defense would have been blamed for it. But people are sort of focusing too much, I think, on the Michigan game and not enough, like you say, on Texas, but also the 3 times they beat Oregon. Like, Bo Nix did an interview yesterday, and he said, they asked him, who's the toughest person you've played against? He went, to be honest, Michael Penix Jr., because we played Washington 3 times and we lost to them 3 times, and he delivered every single time. And you're thinking, well, yeah, fair enough. Those big games, that is a big game for Washington, big game for Oregon. 2 evenly matched teams, 3 great battles, 3 games that could have gone either way. And Michael Penix Jr. won all 3. So you have to think about things like that, not just the Michigan game where, a lot of things kind of went wrong for Washington in that game. And look, Harbaugh's a fantastic coach. Michigan's got a loaded team. They knew what they were doing. And Washington lost to the best team in college football, and if we're being really honest, the best team in college football, probably by a significant margin in the end. I mean, they just blew out Ohio State. They coasted past Alabama. They blew out Washington. They rattled past Penn State and just ran all over them. They were the best team. So I think, he could be off the board by 16. I don't know though, Robbie. It's just hard to he has been a really difficult person to project. But I'd find it exciting for the Seahawks to take him. So let me ask you this, Robbie. Somebody put a question in here and said, okay, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse, and Michael Penix Jr. is available at 16. Who do you take? And I love Chop Robinson, and I really like Jared Verse. But I would just say, Robbie, until you have the guy, until the Seahawks have a guy that we talk about on the same level as Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, that type of person, you have to look for that person. You can have all of these other players. You could go and take another pass rusher and let them rotate with Derek Hall. Until you've got a top quarterback, I don't think anything else trumps that need, Robbie.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's an interesting scenario if all 3 were there. Man, I don't know, but yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you got to go quarterback in this scenario, and I know what people are going to say. I can already feel the Twitter hate coming. Well, God, Gino, stupid.
No.
I mean, but the thing is, it's like taking a shot on a guy that you believe in, and like I said in our last podcast that if John believes in the quarterback and goes for it, then I'm all for it, because we've heard who he's liked prior, and he hasn't missed on those ones. I mean, at least from the names that are out there that we know that he likes. So it's interesting. I would really like to see kind of their big board and where they got these guys. And you're right on some of these things. Penix has been so hard. I think this whole quarterback class is completely different than last year. Like last year, once the combine was over, you kind of knew your top 5 guys immediately. And now it's like, well, you kind of, where could Rattler go? Nix is kind of like, where does he fit in the mix? Penix, we know Williams and Daniels are going to go high. Where does Drake May fall? Do people really love him or do they not? Like, it's nothing set in stone like it was last year. Like last year, you kind of knew. This year, there's too many moving targets, and there's so many other pieces. I don't blame them for wanting more draft stock this year, because the depth at wide receiver and all the things that are available, I just feel like this is a great draft, and we're gonna miss out that second round pick. I can tell you that.
Robbie, that second round pick.
I know.
And the worst thing is that actually, when you actually look at the board, you kind of think, yeah, well, all like these players they're now in that range, and that's sort of second round, and you get to the end of the third round, it's kind of like, those 2 picks would be nice bonus picks if you had like a second rounder. Like now you're sort of relying on those 2 picks, and you're thinking, could they just be a little bit higher? But I don't know. Listen, I just think the Seahawks have appointed Ryan Grubb as their offensive coordinator. Okay. They want somebody who can feature DK Metcalf. And that we can say that. Like, it amazes me, Robbie, that one of the radio stations in Seattle has spent so much of energy talking about a theory of potentially trading DK Metcalf, when the other radio station, KGR, listen noon on Wednesdays, they've had Hugh Millen on, and he's basically gone, yeah, I've chatted to John Schneider, and nudge wink. He basically told me they want to find a way to make DK Metcalf one of the best receivers in the league. And like they want a quarterback, and maybe with Geno under Ryan Grubb, I don't know, but they want a quarterback who is going to get DK Metcalf the ball. And I'm watching, Penix out there today. I'm thinking, DK, just get the ball downfield. And like Jackson Smith-Njigba can get downfield, Robbie. Like it would just be, whoa, it'd be an explosive, exciting offense. And I'm kind of like, let's get in, let's get in this Formula One car, put a foot to the pedal, Robbie, and just see if we can get to the end without crashing into the barrier. And if we do, well, hopefully the guys will come on with a fire extinguisher. So like, it's okay. I'm ready to take a risk. And I just think it'd be interesting as F, to have Michael Penix Jr. throwing the ball to these receivers with his offensive coordinator, knowing the terminology. And quite frankly, somebody sent me a tweet saying, bring him in and sit him for a year. I'm thinking the guy's like 24 this year. Like, get him in. Like, get him in the team right now. Listen, it's not about hating Geno. It's just look at this guy. Like, let's see if he can be the guy. Let's see if he can be that explosive, attack-minded quarterback. So I was excited watching Michael Penix Jr. I feel like we're on a bit of a roll here, Robbie, and I do want to talk about Spencer Rattler as well, but I actually want to pivot to JJ McCarthy at this point because I think he is sort of the big name. So here's what I want to tell you what I think, Robbie, and I want you to react to this because I think I've never done this before, and I'm open to being criticized for it. So I'm watching McCarthy and I'm thinking the arm it's unspectacular. Like people are going, he's got a good arm. It was unspectacular, the arm. There was no real special velocity there. The ball doesn't pop out of his hands like it did with Penix and to an extent Rattler as well. I thought his deep throws were a bit forced. He basically threw exactly how I expected him to throw based on watching the Michigan tape. And I came away, Robbie, thinking, I don't see it. I don't really get it. I don't understand why so much is being talked about with this guy. And then it hit me between the eyes, and I suddenly got it. It's kind of it resonated with me more than the stats that the guy, the Minnesota Vikings fan, sent me on Twitter. It's him. He went on the NFL Network and did an interview that you won't have heard because you were in the stadium. Jeez, Robbie. Like, he is charismatic. He is immensely likable. He is mature, confident. The guy just screams, I can lead your football team as the quarterback. It was just bursting off that. Like, sometimes you sit down and you watch a player. And this is maybe not a very good example. I remember sitting down to watch Garrett Bowles for the first time at Utah. And he's had a decent career, not an amazing career. I remember the first time I watched him and he just basically smashed somebody on the first play. And I was like, oh yeah, he jumps off the screen. Like, wow, look at this guy. And listening to JJ McCarthy, it kind of did the same impact. It wasn't violent. It was him. It was him. I can imagine him going into every single meeting that he has had at this combine, Robbie. And remember, the teams know all of this stuff because they go and visit the facility during the season. So they've been around him. They know what he's like. And they just, I guarantee you now that GMs will have had their heads turned and will have just gone, I want that individual on our team as the quarterback. And it showed up when he was on the field. He wasn't even in the second group. He was the only quarterback from the first group still on the field, as far as I could tell. And when Xavier Worthy ran he's there. He's the first guy to go and congratulate him. Like, maybe they work out. I don't know. Maybe they train in the same place. But he was just everywhere. And he just gave off this alpha vibe. Like, I'm the man. I am the man. And then the other thing, Robbie, is they showed clips because the coverage was all over the place again, like it always is. You'd have one jokey segment, an interview, then they'd show a couple of throws, then there'd be a commercial break, then they'd come back. And what they did is they matched together, edited together a series of his throws. And I thought, I've seen the throws. I want to watch the footwork. I want to watch the technique. The footwork was flawless. The release was good. And I just thought, right, okay, here's what you've got. A+ character, leadership, personality. Footwork, you won't need to work on it. You won't need to get him in and spend ages working on that. Release is fine. He can scramble and throw on the run better than any other quarterback in this class. He's got the best stats on third down. Just won the national championship. Well coached by Harbaugh and all of that setup at Michigan. Someone's going to draft him in the top 5, Robbie. And it doesn't matter that the arm's not great, and it doesn't matter that he only threw like 8 times against Penn State. Someone's going to take him early. And you can't put the grade as a top 5 because the talent and what the physical tools and everything like that is not top 5. I couldn't put him on the board as a blue chip player because I don't think he's a blue chip player. But I think someone is going to go in the same way that someone's going to pay $40 million for Kirk Cousins next week, Robbie. Someone's going to go, that guy can lead my football team to a base level of performance that will keep me in a job, that will have everybody singing on the same hymn sheet, that will have everybody feeling good about themselves, and that will be enough. And whether he can get to a Super Bowl or not will be down to that GM building around him, and they will have to do what the Niners have done and put together a super team by all accounts, because I don't think he's ever going to outgun a Mahomes or somebody like that. But I think someone's going to take him very early, Robbie, because of him, because of who he is. So that's what I think is going to happen. And people saying top 5, no, top 10, yes. All I would say is wait and see. Your thoughts, Robbie?
I think you're tired, man. I think you're tired. Top 5? Listen, I don't know. But I'll tell you this. So there's a couple things about McCarthy. One, I don't think he threw as bad as everyone. I've seen a lot of people hammering him. I thought he threw fine. I just thought he was holding back. It just seemed like he just was just going through the motions and not trying to really like do too much. Just make the throws simple and not try to go too crazy. I thought he had a couple deep. I mean, they weren't like fantastic, but they weren't anything that was like, who was the guy I told you about earlier? That was Reed, where he threw one and it was just a duck. And I was like, what, how did this guy even get invited? Like his were fine. Like, but, and he, a lot of the things that you're talking about right now, who does that remind you of? And I'm going crazy with the comparison here, but I'm trying to like put it out there. Who does that remind you? Alpha male, winner, leader. Everyone likes him. Kind of reminds you of like a Tom Brady, right? Didn't have the biggest arm, right? He could still make great throws, but he didn't have the biggest arm. He wasn't throwing, 60, he doesn't have 60, 70-yard deep bombs, but he could make the throws, and here's the thing about McCarthy. He can scramble a lot more, right? He has those abilities. Now, again, I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, so don't anybody go flipping out. I'm saying that the characteristics are there for that kind of mentality, right? If you're looking at a leader, that's all the things that you described. My first thought was like, well, that's like a Tom Brady.
But you've just nailed it. That's what they're gonna think. That whether it's right or not, whether it's unhinged, whether it's ridiculous, they're gonna think Brady. And they're not because of the talent, Robbie. I'm not, because you're right. No one's going to go, this guy's Tom Brady. But what they're going to go is, hang on a minute. There's a lot of the mental makeup and the technique and all of this stuff that it's not that he is Brady as a complete match playing style wise, but they'll think maybe he can do that. Maybe there's a bit of magic about this guy. And that's it. And listen, and I get what you're saying. Like maybe, a top 5. I understand it, mate. But Diana Rossini was on the Athletic podcast, and I listened to it because I was bored stiff listening to those two parrot on during the combine yesterday. And I had it on in the background and turned the volume off. And she said she had heard quarterbacks 1 to 4. She said that. First 4 quarterbacks, and that the Arizona Cardinals could get a great offer to trade down. So that somebody takes either Drake May, because listen, McCarthy could. All bets are off as far as I'm concerned, Robbie. I would not bet against him going ahead of Drake May. And yeah, so I'm just saying.
I still don't see top 5, and I understand why you're saying that. Top 5 seems seems high to me, but I could be wrong.
Listen.
Weirder things have happened.
I am quite confident on this, Robbie, to the point that if I was on on a betting website, I might chuck £100 on it, which is about $100. I am absolutely thinking, and I get it. I've pre-warned everybody. I have never done this before. I was watching that throwing session and thinking, this is what I expected. And then it just hit me that there are going to be a whole bunch of teams that are going to absolutely love this guy.
Yeah.
And all of these people, can I just say that? All these people going, JJ McCarthy over May is an insanity. It really is not. It is not insanity. Listen, Drake May has been overhyped from day one. He's a good player, and I think John Schneider will really like Drake May. But I'm telling you now, there are going to be a bunch of teams who need a quarterback who have McCarthy ranked ahead of Drake May. I'm just telling you. And you wait and see. We'll all wait and see, in May, who was right on this one. And but I'm telling you now, I am very confident that this guy is going to go very early, Robbie. Very early.
Well, I love the confidence, Rob. I still think you're very tired, though. But yeah,
I am very tired.
You've been working too hard lately.
I am. I could fall asleep right now.
Yeah, I think I just can't see the top 5. I think there are going to teams that really like him and like him as a human. But again, I think once he's thrown on the tape, they're going to see some of the things that you see while he's playing. But hey, Brady went to Michigan. There was Mecca person there, so I don't know. All things considered, he could go, but I think I think top 15 would be my guess. I don't think he gets past Denver. That's my guess.
Here's what I think is going to happen. Chicago takes Caleb Williams first overall. I think Washington will take Jaden Daniels second overall. And I think New England are a huge, enormous mystery, Robbie. I think they are a team to keep a serious eye on because Elliot Wolf his dad was a trenches guy. And if he's not sold on any of these quarterbacks, he will trade down and he will get a haul and he will go and draft a left tackle. So, but it'll depend on how he views McCarthy, how he views May. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots, who I think they know a thing or two about Tom Brady type individuals, would take McCarthy instead of May. I don't think it's out of the question. And I don't think it's out of a question that a team would trade up for the right to take JJ McCarthy instead of Drake May. And then the Cardinals, here's the thing. I don't think teams are going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. rated that much higher than Rome Odunze, who, by the way, I'm just seeing on Twitter is still at Lucas Oil Field now, basically trying desperately to run a 6.66 or 6.5 something in the 3-cone. Like, you just got to love the guy. Like, he's out, everyone else has gone home and he's like desperately trying to run a certain time and he's like looking up and pointing at the sky, like, please let me run this 3-cone that I want to run. I think that the teams who are, let's say Arizona could move, if Arizona could swap places with the Giants, Robbie, they would guarantee one of Odunze or Harrison Jr. I think they'd do that in a shot. I don't think they care which one they would get. And I think a lot of teams will have Odunze rated higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. because the guy is just an absolute delight and a great player. So I'm just saying, I think the Giants, a bit of a desperate franchise. Wouldn't be surprised to see them move up a couple of spots. Wouldn't be surprised to see them move up 3 spots. The quarterback position is so coveted. The idea that JJ McCarthy lasting to like the 8th pick or the 9th pick, I just don't see it happening. And this is not, people are going, oh, you don't draft a person. That you do. Like, and it's not just that he's a person. There are aspects to his game that teams will rally behind. The third downs, the scrambling, the success, the winning, the leadership, the respect of teammates, the CEO style individual. Like I said, this isn't aimed at you, Robbie. It's more aimed at the chat. We'll see. Come and talk to me in May. because I think there's a significant chance that this fella is going to go much higher than people realize. And as someone has put, he's got nice hair. I don't even know if they're on about JJ McCarthy there with the hair.
I don't think they're talking about McCarthy. I think they're talking about the other guy.
But he has a thick head of hair as well. No, so anyway, Rob, I'm glad. This is why I wanted to have this conversation now, though, Robbie, because I do think it's interesting to follow up the Penix stuff with the McCarthy stuff, and then pivot back to Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer Rattler, Robbie, he is unquestionably talented. I think we saw that today with his arms. Oh, they're on about Sam Hartman, of course, with the hair. That is great hair. I mean, really, he should not be allowed to have hair as good as that, because it makes the rest of us who do not have anywhere near as good a hair as that feel very inadequate. You know, how can he have so much hair and some of us have so little? I mean, the man's basically a walking like Calvin Klein advert, isn't he? So
yeah, when they showed him on the big screen, somebody in the front row goes, "He looks like he should be on the Bachelor or something and not playing football."
I think you said like a woman fainted or something when she saw him on the big screen.
No,
I mean, like he is he's quite a handsome chap, shall we say? Anyway, back to Rattler. I think that he showed Robbie a great arm strength. I thought his anticipation was the best of all the quarterbacks. You could really see it. Like Bo Nix kept waiting for the receiver to turn, look at him, and JJ McCarthy was doing this a bit as well. Rattler was throwing his passes before the receiver got into his break, throwing it on target, let them run onto those passes. His deep ball wasn't quite as good as Michael Penix's, but who was going to be as good as Michael Penix's? I think it was the second best deep throw that we saw. Good accuracy on the deep ball. Well, actually, Milton's had a good arm, but Joe Milton is basically just a big guy with an arm. He's not. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. So I was really impressed with Rattler. The problem for Rattler, Robbie, I think, is purely going to be down to how people view the Oklahoma episode and what went wrong there. I know a couple of things, and it's not serious stuff. I'm not going to repeat it on here because, I'm just not. They're not serious issues. They're just little things, immature things that happen at Oklahoma that, by all accounts, he looks like he's way overcome that and a changed man and everything like that and really matured at South Carolina. But teams are still going to ask him about it. And it'll just cap his stock a little bit, Robbie. But in terms of natural talent, there's a reason why 2 years ago he was being talked about as potential first overall pick. The talent's there. It's just, who are you getting? Who are you bringing in? And I think he's got the bit between his teeth. I think he really wants to make this work in the NFL, Robbie. So I think he could provide some real value on day 2.
Yeah, no, I there's a lot of people at this stadium that were hyped about him too. And it seemed like, he threw what you said with anticipation, but I feel like he also he just looked like he was zoned in. I was telling you, that first group of quarterbacks, they looked like they were just kind of going through the motions, whatever. He looked dialed in and ready to go and was taking the opportunity serious. And, I really like Spencer Rattler. I know there's a lot of people who just don't, but for me, I think he's great. I think he'd be a hell of a pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the better quarterbacks to come out of this draft in 5 years, 10 years time.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think he needs to go to the right place. And I hate to say this, Robbie, I think the right place is the LA Rams. I genuinely think that the best, look at you shaking your head.
Why do you guys say stupid shit like that? Come on.
I think the best, I think he would be a great pick for the Rams. I think it'd be great for him to go and sit behind Matt Stafford. And I think the system works for him. I think the personality would mesh well with Sean McVay. I think that would be perfect. And I just don't know if Seattle's a match because look what they did the last 2 years, Robbie. Look at what they've done. It's been character, hasn't it? It's been all about character. To almost to a fault, really, they have gone for character. And I'm not sure that as much as Spencer Rattler may be a changed man, I'm just not sure the Seahawks are going to go, yep, that's what the franchise needs. They need Spencer Rattler as the franchise quarterback. Someone said it was a Pete thing. That it wasn't. It was as much a John thing as it was a Pete thing. John is big on this as well. Trust me. So they're not going to take any risks, I don't think. And I think if they're going to draft whoever they draft, Robbie, there are a whole bunch of really good character players. The offensive line class, pretty much to a man, are all fantastic characters. Safe. Chop Robinson, safe. Jared Verse, safe. Penix, safe. McCarthy. Everybody knows what my thoughts are on him now. So, there are plenty of players there that they could take that fit that sort of character mold. I just don't think Spencer Rattler is really sort of fitting in that mantra from the last 2 years. So I don't think it's going to happen, Robbie.
I don't think character is the only reason why you could say that, though. I think, like, if you're going to look at someone like that, you could almost say the opposite. Here's a guy who got labeled total douche bag, right? Total cocky punk kid, mature.
I think some people still think that about him.
Right, but I mean, we don't know how he's interviewing. That's what's really going to come down to is the interview. If they bring him in and they're talking, it sounds like all the coaches and players from South Carolina love him. Hey. So if they're talking, So if they're talking to him and getting a vibe of like, how is he now? How is he? What have you seen that helped them get from this to this? And you see a guy who's matured, and they want someone who can go through the fire, go through the ringer, be someone who can come out of it and be a better person. And I think they could really admire that about someone and really think, okay, this is a guy that's been through it. And if things start to go bad here, instead of like, throwing us under the bus or the O line or whatever it could be, he's going to stick up for his teammates. He's going to battle like heck. He's a gym rat. We know that. He's going to be a guy that's going to put in all the work that's going to do what you need to do. I hate the idea that because he was a kind of a punk in that Netflix thing and then lost his job to Caleb Williams at USC that he just immediately just shouldn't be drafted. I don't know.
That's not what it is, though. It's not just, well, he was that, so therefore he shouldn't be drafted. It is to what extent he is the person that, like, the point I'm making is that it's my understanding that I think some people still are not convinced on him. And that if you are talking about a team that has gone completely 100% towards high character, which is what the Seahawks have done. Like what was the phrase that John used last year and the year before? Like my mind's gone complete. Without compromise, I think that's what he said. Like character, high character, no compromises, no exceptions, 100% high character. When you do that, I would think that the quarterback that you draft has to be beyond flawless in that type of regard. And I just don't know whether Spencer Rattler fits into that. I think people like Penix potentially do, and McCarthy and Drake May, and I don't know whether Rattler does. He may do, but we just don't know.
But we're holding on to Geno Smith, who just got a DUI last 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, I know, but that's a slightly different scenario, though, isn't it?
But still, that's right, and that's just supposed to be your leader, though.
Well, there's two things on that. First of all, that case was dropped, and it was found that he was not over the legal limit. So that's really important to stress, because that is, technically that's not. It wasn't a DUI, and then the other thing is that is somebody who was on the team who they brought back, for $7 million last year to potentially compete with Drew Lock. He won the job. And, from there, they've offered him a new contract. That's very different than saying, we're going to draft this person. Like if Geno Smith had been in the 2022 NFL draft, the Seahawks would not have drafted him, I don't think. But it's very different when you've had a player with you for all of that time and you've got that build-up with him. So I'm just saying, I don't know whether the Seahawks will go down that road. And listen, I've been as high on Spencer Rattler as probably anybody else, quite frankly, throughout this whole season and process. I've made the arguments for him, and I think he will have a lot of success. Do I think the Seahawks are going to draft him? I am not convinced with that. Do I think there is a chance that somebody like Sean McVay could draft him and get the best out of him. I do. I think there's a chance of that. But
That's
then there's
fair.
other
That's fair.
teams that I think will think that way as well. And someone's mentioned the Raiders there. I'm not sure. I think he probably will go somewhere where they've already got an established quarterback. So we'll see. We'll see how that situation plays out. But I thought he was very, very good today. I'm just not sure on Seattle. And I suppose that's to take it on a step, Robbie, before we perhaps talk about some of the receivers. Where do you think that puts Seattle then? How are you sort of viewing this situation now? Because I keep going back and forward on it. I think after watching the first session of quarterbacks throw, I kind of thought, I think they're just going to take the best offensive lineman here, the way that this is going. Especially with the way that like Fatanu just fits everything that I think they like. Obviously, the offensive line coach likes him. He's had him at Washington. Marius Mims. Who's the other player I wanted to mention here? Mine's gone blank again. But there are players that, offensive linemen who fit the character thing, who I think they're going to really, really like. And I could see that easily being a direction they go. And the only thing that sort of makes me second guess this, Robbie, and wonder, I'm not sure. Fuaga was the other player I was going to mention, but I think he's going to be long gone by 16. The only thing that makes me second guess that is this constant coming back to the quarterback. Have they seen somebody, Robbie, who they want? And I still don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility, Robbie, that John trades up for a quarterback. I think that is plausible. I think they're doing their homework on this class. And I think if he likes somebody, he may just go and get him.
Yeah, if he really likes someone, I'm comfortable with him doing that. I don't know if he likes anybody enough. I think he really liked Quinn Ewers, and I think that was a big hit. But I don't think he's willing to wait a year to draft another quarterback. I think he's going to select somebody this year. Where does it leave him? Best player available, I guess. I don't know. I think you're probably looking at a small trade down to try to gain some more draft capital for that third, maybe late second round pick, but get more draft capital and try to select some more players and take best player available at 21 or wherever you trade down to.
And I think that could easily happen, Robbie. I just wonder. I don't know. I'm trying to get in the head of John Schneider here. So you've just done the last two drafts where you've had a whole bunch of picks because of the Russell Wilson trade, and you've done the whole best player available thing, and you've got a lot of praise for it, but that hasn't moved the needle. The team's been 9-8 both times, and you can. I said this to somebody. I think it was in a comment on a previous video, Robbie. You could spend forever trying to build the perfect team, and you'll never get there. You'll never get to the point where you go, right now, everything's perfectly set up to trade up for a quarterback. And if you find that position, teams will fleece you anyway because they'll go, well, we know what your plan is here. Like you've almost got to have a bit of the, we're surprising you with an offer here. There has to be that kind of element to it. And like I say, does John just think, this is my show now? We need to be aggressive. I've seen, because he could bypass all the quarterbacks, take an offensive lineman, different schemes, different coaches, pretty much the same roster then you go into next year with. And it could just be more of the same. And you've just done another year down the line where it's been more of the same. And then what do you do then, Robbie? Like, oh, well, Quinn Ewers is here now. And so is Shadir Sanders. And so is Carson Beck. But they're going to be the top three picks. And we're picking 18th or 16th or whatever. And we can't trade up for them because the top three teams want a quarterback. So, what do you do then? You wait another year then, just go and take the best player available again and then hope that, you can just keep going on this kind of like treadmill of averageness. Like you just average all the time. At some point you need to go and get something that can take you to the next level. And my opinion has always been from day one that you will never have a flawless team. The point is to have a quarterback and some other players that can make up for your flaws elsewhere. So if the Seahawks had a great quarterback and you could put DK and Jackson Smith and Jigba with them and two great running backs, and if you just have a complementary defense, Robbie, I think you can have a lot of success. What I don't think you can do is have, Geno, who I know a lot of people think is a top 10 quarterback. For me, he's between sort of 12 and 17. In the, some weeks he'll be nearer 12 and some weeks he's nearer 17. And I just think you need I do not think he makes up for the flaws elsewhere on the roster. So I think that's sort of my approach. And I just wonder if John feels that way. Like, if he likes a quarterback, and I do think he will like quarterbacks in this draft, is this the year, Robbie? Is this, after 2 years of stacking the roster, is this the year when he goes, I'm going up, I'm getting a guy, we're going in, new coaches, let's do it, new system, let's just start this thing off again. And I'll tell you something, all the things that he's said or not said over the last few weeks suggest something's going on. They suggest something's going on. Otherwise, they would have just gone, Gino's the guy, the minute that he was asked about it in his first solo press conference.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think they're probably going to bring someone in to compete with Gino. I don't think he's just given the starter role this year. I think someone's going to come and compete, whether that's a rookie or a free agent. Maybe it's Drew Lock. They want to see him compete again. I'm not really sure. But I could see a scenario where they trade up. I just, again, John would have to really love the quarterback to do that. I don't know if he does. Maybe he does. But there's something going on there. I understand what you're saying about the trade back and how we've done that for the last 2 years or whatever, but I also could see, like, this is a new regime and they might like some guys as well. And John might be listening to some of their opinions, like, yeah, like, maybe this is what we could do. I do think he wants to draft a quarterback this year, whether it's a one of the top 5 that we like or someone that, is a little bit down the road that he might think can develop. I'm not really sure. I think we'll take a quarterback. I just don't know if it'll be in that top 5 guy range, trading up, or even if one falls to us at 16.
This is part of the problem we've got there, Robbie. I'm just going to put this message up here. I know it's not a super chat. Colton's put, Robbie, you will undersell the roster talent we have. This team should have won 11 games minimum, Robbie. 11 games minimum. The smallest amount that the team should have won was 11 games last year. Trade down. If a QB drops to you, fine. Trading up is ridiculous. This is the problem you've got, Robbie. There are people, I presume Colton's not taking the piss. I'm presuming he's being deadly serious there. He thinks the least amount of games the Seahawks should have won were 11 games this year. Just a quick reminder that they just squeezed past the Joshua Dobbs-led Arizona Cardinals at home in Week 7. They relied on a Jamal Adams header against the Cleveland Browns, who was it, like PJ? Who was it? I can't remember the guy's name who was at quarterback. And the Seahawks didn't do a thing in the second half until that last drive. They couldn't move the ball about 5 yards. They required a last gasp drive to escape against the Washington Commanders, who were they traded away the 2 best pass rushers the week before. They were dreadful, and they squeezed past them 29-26. Then went a 4-game losing streak. They required a last gasp drive to beat a slumping Philadelphia Eagles, a last gasp drive to beat the awful Tennessee Titans, with about 15 players out injured, and they needed the Cardinals absolutely throwing the game away with one missed kick or 2 missed kicks in Week 18, and then blowing the thing at the end. I mean, the Cardinals should have won that game. And then on top of that, the Seahawks were also blown out by the Niners twice, blown out by the Ravens, blown out by the Rams in Week 1, and were embarrassed against the Steelers at home. But Robbie, apparently this should have won a minimum of 11 games. Can you explain that one to me?
No, but you just depressed me by how bad we were last year.
This is the thing, though. If there are people out there who genuinely think the Seahawks should have won a minimum of 11 games last year, that everything's great, everything is awesome, I mean, like, you could far easily make a better case that they should have won 6 games last year or 7 games, that they were lucky to get 9. I mean, like, Jesus, what planet are some people on if they think we should have won a minimum of 11 games? Like, it's crazy.
We do have a couple super chats, so if you do want to grab those.
Sorry, well, listen. It's just, I don't get it. Like, people need to be realistic about where this team is. They really do. And they've got some good players, and I think coaching changes was necessary. But come on. This idea that you've just run it back with new coaches, that they're going to be a 13-win team, it ain't happening. Right, super chats. 12th Man North says, great work on the combine so far, lads. Shout out for the word lads being used. What do you make of JJ hitting 61 miles an hour on the hardest throw drill? It ranks second on the day, I believe. I have never, ever once, I have to say, 12 Man North, paid any attention to the throwing against a big bag and getting a reading on that, because every single year, it doesn't, like, there's been a few times when, like, random people have thrown the hardest pass, and you only have to, like, look at the tape and go, they've not got the strongest arm. So I don't really put much into that, but thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Because there's no way that JJ McCarthy's got the second strongest. He's got a stronger arm than Penix or Milton or whoever. That's just not true. Nick says Penix to Seattle makes so much sense. Why wouldn't JS select him to sit behind Geno? Could he look his GB mentors in the face if he passes on Penix after bringing in his college offensive coordinator, only for Penix to tear up the league? Well, that's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, Robbie? If they do pass on Penix and he does well, that will be held against Seattle. It was in your backyard. You appointed Ryan Grubb. How could you let that one slip away if they pass on him?
He ain't going to make it to us anyways. In my opinion, I don't think he's going to make it to 16.
I
just don't.
I think there's a chance he will. I genuinely think there's, because we'll run through the list, Robbie.
Well, I mean, if you're that convinced, I could see why you would think that. If you're that convinced that JJ McCarthy is going to go in the top 5, then in that scenario, maybe. But I have a hard time seeing it.
So the teams, Chicago, Washington, obviously, then you've got the Patriots potentially, the Giants, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Denver, and Las Vegas. So there's a lot of teams. One of them's going to get Kirk Cousins. One of them's going to get Justin Fields. We don't know what's going to happen with Baker Mayfield. So let's say 2 of those teams get veterans. You may well be right that it's just where's the fit. Like I don't think Penix, for example, is necessarily a great fit for Kevin O'Connell or Sean Payton. So if you were going to pick a team, what would you say? Vegas?
Yeah, I don't know, or someone trading up. I'm not really sure. Plus, did I see today that the Patriots were looking at getting Baker Mayfield? That was a report? Okay.
Daniel Jeremiah mentioned that, and that was in the podcast that I listened to yesterday as well. I think Diana Rossini floated the idea out there that the Patriots could have a look. I'm not surprised by that, by the way, because the people who Elliot Wolf has been around drafted Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. So there's a respect for Baker Mayfield within that group of decision makers. So I'm not surprised by that. Matt B says, with the draft almost 2 months away and people's hummingbird attention spans, could the heat cool off Penix again and maybe drop him close to 16? I know I can only say we've kind of disagreed quite a lot in this stream, Robbie, more than usual. Yeah, I don't feel like we need to sort of. My encouragement would be for Seahawks fans not to suddenly, if you are of the mind that you want Michael Penix in round 1, I would not panic based off this combine performance. I have to say, when we started the stream, it didn't even really enter my mind that he wouldn't be there at 16. And we've talked about it, that Robbie feels that way. And I think you can make an argument for that because of the need for quarterbacks, the arm. I think he will be. If I had to lean either way, I would say he will be there at 16. And then it's just a case of whether you want to take him or not. Because we've got to remember here, a lot of people, Robbie, had him sort of round. I mean, I had him in round 2 on the board. I also had JJ McCarthy on the round 2 on the board. And I said, I'm now convinced he's going to go in the top 5. But we've gone over that. So I don't know. I think there's a chance he will be there at 16. If he's there at 16, Robbie, do you think the Seahawks will draft him at 16?
I do.
You think they'd take him?
I think they would.
Here's an interesting thing to mention. They didn't meet with him, did they, at the combine? So they had a meeting with like McCarthy and May and Daniels. Presumably they didn't have one with Caleb Williams. So they met with all the quarterbacks and when Penix was asked, did he meet with the Seahawks? He was like, no, and I hope they don't think I'm awful or something. He made a big joke about it. But I think part of the reason why that might be, Robbie, is, unless I'm mistaken, you can actually have local players come and visit your facility. You have like a unique ability to have like a local players come and visit. And they can do that with him, and they can't do that with May, Daniels, McCarthy, and stuff like that. So I think it's probably just there. You only get 45 meetings at the combine. So I think they probably just saved one there. Because, of course, Ryan Grubb's also a great source of information.
Well, not only that, he Penix was working out with Geno Smith and during the offseason. I think they got a lot of information on Penix. I don't think they need to meet with him.
Well, that's the great thing, isn't it, Robbie? They've got a lot of information on a few players, haven't they? Because they've got Harbaugh from Michigan, who was there last season, and McCarthy, McDonald was there in Michigan. So if anybody, we've done an hour. So if anybody has any like last super chats, stick them in, and I'll let Robbie go because he's kind of like probably not even taken his coat off yet. I don't know.
No, I did.
Got through the door and straight in. I mean, have we got time for very quickly some receivers chat? Robbie?
Yeah, I got time, man.
Oh, cool. I didn't know how you were.
I'm more worried about you. I think you're really tired.
No, man. Listen, it's 1:50 a.m.
Yeah, if you guys don't know this, Rob works his ass off on this and he gets so much shit. So I hope you guys appreciate this because he works his ass off.
I mean, did you see the thing that I posted yesterday, Robbie, that happened yesterday? So, yesterday was a long day. The defensive back workouts are so tedious. And then it finished. I did the stream. I did the article. It's 4:30 a.m. I put like a wash on, so I got like washing
your dog
out, and my dog shat. It just diarrhea all over the carpet in our main, what we would call a living room. I don't know what you guys call it. And I walked in and saw it, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like this is. There's just something about diarrhea versus like if you vomited, it would have been okay. I can clean this up, but because it's that, you kind of like I had to get like a huge cleaning or the disinfectants out. It took about 40 minutes. I was like, oh my God, like I just want to go to bed. And then I had to get up because I had to work today on a broadcast, and it was a big game that I had to cover as well. And then like I rushed straight back home for this. I am ready to pass out, but Robbie, I love it. Like it's nothing. There's nothing I enjoy more than talking football and Seahawks and draft. So provided that you're okay for a bit longer, I am.
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, let's on the wide receivers. Let's do this.
So, I mean, is there anybody off the top of your head? I mean, I can run through some names. Obviously, Xavier Worthy ran, but then didn't do anything. Brian Thomas had a 4.33 40, the LSU receiver. You know, a much bigger guy than Xavier Worthy and running exceptionally fast. Tez Walker ran well. Jacob Cohen, who was a blog favorite until the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a disappointing Senior Bowl, but he kind of repaired his stock a little bit there. Roman Wilson ran a 4.39, which was expected. Lad McConkey, Robbie, 4.39.
Yeah.
I think he could sneak into the back end of round one easily. Xavier Legette ran well. That's not a surprise. I thought Troy Franklin was a bit disappointing, I thought, really, with his performance. But then Roma Dunze looked like Roma Dunze, you know, and he's just, he's like an absolute god of a human as well. So he's going to go very, very, very early. It's such a deep group, isn't it, Robbie?
It's just a very deep wide receiver group, like very deep. I didn't really, I don't think I really grasped it until I was there today. I was like, damn, there are a lot of good wide receivers out there this year. A lot of them. Jalen Polk is going to be good. I mean, he didn't run the fastest today, but I mean, he's going to be great. I thought Malik Washington looked good. Well, I'm not surprised Xavier Worthy didn't do anything after the running. I wouldn't either. I'm like, I'm good. You don't need to do anything.
We've actually got some agility testing results that have come in, Robbie. Four of the quarterbacks ran a short shuttle. I love the fact that four of them ran a short shuttle.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy ran a short shuttle. He ran the fastest one. He ran a 4.23. Michael Pratt also ran a 4.23. Sam Hartman ran a 4.34, and Spencer Rattler ran a 4.37. Congratulations to the four quarterbacks who ran a short shuttle. Good for them. And they all ran a 3-cone as well. JJ McCarthy ran a 6.82. Sam Hartman a 7.19. Michael Pratt 7.20. And Spencer Rattler a 7.21. And the receivers have done some as well. So we were mentioning Roma Dunze wanted to run a certain 3-cone. He only ran a 6.88, which is quite disappointing, really. Well, it isn't like it doesn't really matter that much, but I think he was shooting for something a lot faster than that. Ricky Pearsall ran a 6.64, Luke McCaffrey a 6.70, and then the rest of the numbers are kind of mediocre. And then with the short shuttles, Luke McCaffrey 4.02, Roma Dunze ran a 4.03 short shuttle, Robbie, so a really good short shuttle from him. Ricky Pearsall 4.05. You know, a handful of the receivers did it. I've got to the point now, Robbie, where I'm just pleased if somebody runs a short shuttle or a 3-cone. Bring it back. They should do it. They should make it the first test after the 40 and get it out of the way. Bring the shuttles back is what I say. So yeah, is there any chance you think the Seahawks would draft a receiver, Robbie, or do you think it's basically as is unless Tyler Lockett retires or moves on?
I think they'll. I don't think it'll be early, but with how deep this wide receiver crew is, I mean, you're going to get a good one in the 3rd or 4th round that could have easily been a 2nd round pick. Yeah, I think you're going to get a good one, and I think they're absolutely going to draft one. Especially if Lockett. I mean, I'm now convinced after our last conversation when I was like, "There's no way Lockett's going," that Lockett's probably going to be gone, and so yeah, I'm convinced now that he's not going.
You think he's going to go?
Well, now I am after our conversation the last time we had it because I was convinced he wasn't. And then after you convinced me otherwise, yeah, I think the $27 million, unless they restructure his contract and he ends up playing another 2-3 years and retires after that. But I don't know.
I was just sort of looking at these short shuttle results and everything, Robbie, on Twitter, and I've just accidentally stumbled across a video of Ricky Pearsall, the Florida receiver, dunking a basketball.
He had a good day too, by the way.
Well, I was going to say, like the testing results and the ability that he showed in that dunk, he is an elite athlete, like fantastic. So there's definitely something there with him. Roy has said, thanks so much, Rob, and to Robbie as well. Robbie very kindly jumping and straight on, having been at Lucas Oil Field. And Louis has sent in $4.99 super chat as well. Really appreciate all the super chats, and the numbers are great, Robbie. It's because you're back on, Robbie. We've had like so many more viewers tonight watching live than we had yesterday when it was me on the solo mission. Are you heading to Lucas Oil Field tomorrow, Robbie, or are you going to be?
I might. I'm undecided. So I took both my boys who are 6 and 5 with me, and bless their hearts, they were champs all day. We got there and we were out of snacks within the first 15 minutes because they just downed all the snacks, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna go quick." And my oldest looked at me and goes, "This is boring." It's like all they're doing is running. And I was like, "I know, buddy. I'm sorry." And I was like, "But you got to get excited about them, see how fast they are." And then they started to get into it and ask more questions. And by the end, they were doing great. So
it's hard, isn't it?
But we'll see. We'll see how. We'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Well, either way, Robbie, it's an exciting day because the offensive linemen are testing, and this is a great offensive line class. It's always interesting to get all the explosive testing results and everything. So we'll see. But I have to say, Robbie, I know what I'll be watching as my head hits the pillow because I'm terrible for this. I always end up watching something on my phone before I go to sleep. I know it's bad for you. I know you shouldn't do it, Robbie. I'm telling you now, I'll be cracking out that highlights video of Michael Penix Jr. again. I'm watching all 10 minutes of it. And that's what we're watching because I just enjoyed watching him throw today, and I think he's a very interesting player with a great arm, and I'm a sucker for a great arm, and so is John Schneider. But we'll see. And listen, I wouldn't, even though he didn't test today, Robbie, I would just say again, Drake May. There is a lot of John Schneider style quarterback in Drake May, and if McCarthy did go 3, and May slipped a little bit, I'm just saying. Watch out. I mean, he practically admitted that when he was on 710 the other day, John Schneider, and they asked him, why did he meet with Drake May and Jaden Daniels? And he basically, well, you never know who's going to move down, and you never know what kind of trade opportunities there are. So I think he likes this quarterback class. I think he's open to taking one, and we will see. And I can understand the scenario, Robbie, where they just go best player available or trade down or any of that stuff. I can also imagine a scenario where John just goes, let's do it. Let's go. Let's be aggressive. Let's go for it. Yeah, let's go and get this guy because he's the best. We want him. Let's go and get him. So we shall see. Anyway, always an interesting time. Free agency's on the way, Robbie, as well. Not too far away. I don't think the Seahawks are going to do anything, but
No. I'm more interested to see who they get rid of than who they actually
bring in. Exactly. This is a big week, Robbie, because this is going to be the week when Jamal Adams gets cut.
Finally, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Reflect the Sun asked if I if I had any big bets on the first round pick this year, like I did with Anthony Richardson last year.
Ooh.
No, I don't. I don't. But though I'm now convinced that Rob should put a bet on JJ McCarthy being in the top 5 and see how much money you can get out of that. I'm gonna go look that up.
I wish I did it yesterday.
I'm afraid the odds. Yeah, that the odds have gone up. I'm gonna go look and see if what the odds are on what you would actually win if you put $100 down on JJ McCarthy going in the top 5.
The thing is, it's like over here, like whisper it quietly. Like the British bookies are not as quite as on top of it, Robbie, as they are over in America. So I might be able to sneak in a crafty bet there that gets good odds. So we will see. But I fancy it. I fancy top 5. We've just had this late super chat from Nicholas, and I really appreciate this, Nicholas, because it's a whopper. Really, really appreciate that. It's so generous. And I'll read it out. It says, "Thank you for all of your hard work and unbridled passion for the Hawks to hoist to Lombardi. I just found you 3 months ago thanks to the YouTube algorithm, and I feel like I've been missing out. I love all your soliloquies and speculation. Don't change." Well, I really appreciate that, Nicholas. The fact that people get anything out of this, the fact that we have a few hundred people sat here listening to someone from Rotherham talk about the NFL draft constantly amazes me. But I have to say that I owe a lot to Robbie because he keeps me grounded. So when I'm going off on my rants about the state of the roster, and he goes, "You've got some super chats. You see, this is what we need." So I have to give a lot of respect to Robbie as well.
I appreciate that. I've only been doing this for a couple of years now, 4 years.
No, it's been like 4 years.
4 years,
it's flown by.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Listen, I remember the first time I ever got a chance to have a conversation with Rob one-on-one. I was like, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity because I've been following you for so long. So this is a joy for me. Now I love doing this stuff. So, and I appreciate everyone coming in and commenting on my hats. I saw that the other day on YouTube. Someone's like, "Rob does great analysis. Robbie has good hats." I was like, all right.
You have some great hats, man.
Great.
You do have some great hats. I have to say. You have some great hats. Awesome. Well, listen, hopefully, Robbie, whether you attend or not, maybe we can have a chat about the O-liners tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching. I don't know if I'll be live though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're able to jump on, just let me know, and we'll definitely do something. I am, despite the fact I am tired and it's 2 a.m, I am now going to go and write my combine review of the day. So SeahawksDraftBlog.com for that. It'll be up, I'd say, within the hour. So keep checking for that. If you could like the video, it's much appreciated. If you could leave a comment in the comment section, even if you've got nothing to say, just say "Go Hawks." It will help. And if you could subscribe, the subscriber numbers have shot up in the last 6 months. So really appreciate all of that. If you could keep them ticking along, it would be much appreciated. Anyway, big thanks to Robbie. Big thanks to all of you for watching. Big thank you for the super chats. Enjoy the combine, and we'll see you for the final day tomorrow. Bye for now.